New England Patriots quarterback Drake Maye appears to be ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. The real question is, are the Patriots ready to start him? Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots, breaking down the Patriots' 24-3 loss to the New York Jets on Thursday night at MetLifeStadium. Just an abysmal performance from the New England Patriots in all three phases, and of course, it's leading to question marks. Can this offense be anything close to what New England Patriots fans hope it can be? Is the defense missing Juwan Bentley a little bit too much to be effective? And last but certainly not least, and the question we're going to tackle right off the bat here on Locked On Patriots, is Jacoby Brissett's performance on Thursday night enough to turn the keys over to rookie Drake Maye? All of this and more on today's episode of the show. And joining me here to break it all down for you, the ins and outs, the ups and downs, is the resident voice of reason of Locked On Patriots, my good friend Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com, and of course, the Patriots 4th and 2 podcast. Welcome back to Locked On Patriots, Steve. Thanks for joining me, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Obviously, last night didn't turn out the way the Patriots had hoped, and it was ugly, I guess you could say.
Without question, it was definitely ugly, and we're going to get into how ugly in just a moment, folks. But first, we remind you that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And Steve, Jacoby Brissett entered this game knowing that the Patriots needed to kickstart their passing game. They needed to utilize that passing game off of play action, take deep shots down the field, try to be able to get something going on offense. Unfortunately, Jacoby just was not able to do it, and it wasn't all his fault, folks. Finished 12 of 18 for 98 yards, was sacked 5 times, and he was hit 15 times as the Jets turned to a blitz-heavy approach. Very effective way to be able to shut him down. They also were able to hold the running game to under 80 yards combined. Steve, when you put out this type of offensive performance, it's going to lead to questions. And it also led to rookie Drake Maye getting his first regular season action in the fourth quarter. A lot of Patriots fans are wondering whether Jacoby's struggles were enough to yield the keys of the kingdom now to Drake Maye and have him go in and start as early as week 4 and a matchup in Santa Clara, California, when the Patriots visit the San Francisco 49ers. Steve, this is not a question that can be answered easily or with just a couple of words. It needs a level head. It needs a voice of reason. Well, we all know who the resident voice of reason here is on Locked On Patriots. I'm going to give my good friend a chance to weigh in on this in a moment, but the ultimate voice of reason when it comes to the Patriots, Drake Maye, weighed in on the subject when we spoke to him earlier today. He said, quote, "Jacoby is our quarterback until I say he is not the quarterback. I thought he showed a lot of toughness. I thought he showed a lot of grit." Steve, I think we can all agree with Gerard. Jacoby showed a ton of toughness last night. He showed a lot of grit, but is he correct in his assessment with saying that Jacoby Brissett still should remain the quarterback over Drake Maye at this point?
I think so. As tough as it is after watching last night, putting Drake in really doesn't make any sense at this point. I mean, I know he would put him in for mop-up duty last night at garbage time, and that's fine because you want him to get a little experience there. That to me isn't a bad thing, but putting Drake in isn't going to make the offensive line block any better than they failed to do last night. And, it's not going to help the wide receivers get any more separation than they've been getting. And, it's just, I just don't think it's good, smart football to develop your quarterback when you're putting him in a situation where there's so many things stacked against him right now. As much as I want to see him get on the field, they need to start blocking better before I would even consider it. I mean, I agree with Drake Maye. Jacoby Brissett is as tough as they come. 15 hits, 5 sacks. I mean, you know, and they were having jailbreak pass rushers coming in, you know, unblocked way too many times. And I know Drake is, you know, he's much more mobile, but you really don't want your rookie quarterback stepping into that type of situation. So for me, I don't want to see him in there right now, just for his own development. I would love to see him in there. The fan in me wants to see him play. But if I was a football guy and I was Gerard Mayo, I would say no at this time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In no way will I berate the fan base for wanting to see Drake Maye play football. He's exciting. He has the ability to utilize his skill set, to utilize that off-script type of mentality and off-script type of ability that he has to make things happen. Yeah, he will be able to do that. And there will be instances where Drake Maye looks like an otherworldly quarterback. We saw him do it in the preseason. We saw him do it last year at UNC. There have been moments in training camp where he has looked like the number 3 pick and ready to lead this team on the field. But Steve, you hit the nail right on the head. You're throwing him into a situation that does not in any way help his development. The Jets defense went after the Patriots offensive line, blitzing Jacoby Brissett on 40% of his dropbacks. That's the highest number that a Robert Saleh defense has blitzed an opposing quarterback since 2021. This according to Next Gen Stats. And of course, a tip of the cap to our good friend Mike Reese at ESPN for kind of doing the legwork for us on those statistics. But that was eye-opening to me in terms of what Jacoby went through against this Jets defense. And you know, teams that do have the ability to blitz, get after the quarterback, like the San Francisco 49ers, they're going to be watching that. They're going to be salivating at the opportunity to be able to get after a quarterback. And if you're going to put Drake Maye back there and allow him to take those types of hits, you're asking for trouble. And I hate to say that, folks. Like Steve, I would love to see Drake Maye be able to get the reps. I understand that there are arguments to be made for letting a rookie quarterback learn to play through pressure. He's going to have to do it at some point. You can't keep him in shrink wrap forever. But this New England Patriots situation along the offensive line is dire right now. The front office needs to take accountability for the lack of attention they showed to building this offensive line in the offseason. And because of that, I think they are stunting the growth right now of their quarterback. And unfortunately, I just don't think it's a feasible circumstance where Drake can come in, right the ship steadily enough and consistently enough for this to be a good thing for him or for the Patriots as a whole. I think this is going to be a really lose-lose situation for all sides here.
Yeah, and I think they need to go back to run heavy. You know, I know the Jets stacked the box like their first 2 opponents did, but they were successful at running. Now, you know, early in the game, and I understand that, you know, Gerard was saying just on Sunday that, you know, they need to start pushing the ball down the field more. But, you know, in the first 9 snaps, they threw the ball 7 times and, you know, Ramondre Stevenson only carried it twice, and you saw what was happening there. The Jets were just overwhelming them. And, you know, they need to get the downfield passing done more. But I think they may have gone a little too far last night. You need to stick with what you can do rather than what you can't. And right now, they can't pass protect, and Drake Maye's not going to help that. You know, I think they need to run the ball more. You know, if they're going to bring in Drake Maye, the earliest I would consider it would be after San Francisco when they play Miami. And that's if Jacoby makes it through San Francisco, because we know they can get after the passer.
Oh, yeah.
And as you mentioned, and it's a great point, they watched that tape, and you know, that's the blueprint. Just blitz the heck out of the Patriots and take your chances where they may, because they haven't proved they can beat that yet. And until they do, teams are going to continue to do that against them. That's why I think bringing Drake Maye in right now is not the answer, but sticking with the running game and then just try to get, some play action going. They had one nice play action pass for 22 yards there. They just need a lot more of that. And the pass protection is the key here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The pass protection is the key. And if the Patriots don't shore that up, no matter who's back there is playing with a target on his chest and on his back. And right now, unfortunately, those duties fall on Jacoby Brissett. And Drake Maye is a rookie, and you have to treat him as such. And at that point, because he is such a valuable member of this team, of this team's future, you cannot jeopardize the future for a moment of gratification in watching Drake Maye play football and maybe get this offense going a little bit alive. There are so many problems on this team right now, and last night's game brought them out, folks. It's not just an offensive line problem. There are issues right now when it comes to the running game. If this running team does not play a perfect game, you saw what happens to this offense. The defensive side of the ball, obviously struggling without Juwan Bentley. Folks, these are all issues that we are going to cover here today on Locked On Patriots, and we will continue to break them down, staying on the offensive side of the ball. In addition to Jacoby Brissett's woes, what were the biggest problems for the Patriots on offense that only allowed them to muster a measly 139 total yards? Steve and I are going to give our take on that subject and more when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listen up, Locked On listeners. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, listen up, because you're going to love this. We have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th pregame moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday, September 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. And just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Pats fans, thank you for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots. Joining me to help break down the Patriots' abysmal 24-3 loss to the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football in the Meadowlands is my good friend, my Patriots paisan, columnist extraordinaire of PatsFans.com, and of course the co-host of another great Patriots podcast that you'll want to put in your rotation if you haven't already, Patriots 4th and 2, alongside the great Derek Havens. He's my buddy, Steve Balestrieri. And Steve, in the previous segment, we talked a lot about the quarterback woes that the New England Patriots are facing right now. And through 3 games, Jacoby Brissett is 42 of 69 for 368 yards with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. But he is constantly under pressure. And because of that, it's led a lot of people to believe that Drake Maye may be a better option under center, taking snaps in the quarterback position, maybe injecting a little bit of life into this Patriots offense. But you know as well as I that it's not just about the quarterback problems the Patriots are having. This offensive line is in shambles, and it needs to be fixed. There are immediate improvements that need to be made, whether that means additional personnel or simply better game planning, better execution. Yeah, the Patriots right now are victim to all of that. But the running game also struggled on Thursday night against the Jets. The passing game continues to be nearly non-existent. When you take all of this under account, Steve, what do you think are the Patriots' biggest problems when it comes to the offense and why they have looked so MIA?
Yeah, and we've mentioned it, on here several times. I think everything starts with the offensive line. If your offensive line is not holding their blocks, they can't pass protect. If they're not getting any push forward, your running backs are getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. And, then the result is, your quarterback doesn't have time, to go through his progressions and find somebody open. And number two, your running backs aren't able to get to that second level consistently. And, that's why in the previous segment I mentioned, I think they need to go back to, running centric first, because they have been successful at that. And, early in games against Cincinnati and Seattle, they weren't getting a ton of yardage running the football, but that wears on teams. And you saw second, third, fourth quarters, they started getting those chunk running plays. One of the things they did do last night, and I would like to see more of, they got Pop Douglas in a running play where, the defense was selling out, going toward one side. They handed off to Pop going the other. I think he had about a 9 or a 10-yard gain. And that's the kind of thing they need to break it up. Sometimes, the answer is to run more, unfortunately, because their passing game is not where it needs to be. And we knew it was going to take time. We didn't know the offensive line's pass protection was going to be as leaky as it's shown. And, I think Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, they're fine. I have no issue with them whatsoever. In fact, the Patriots, they only ran for 78 yards, partly out of design, but they still averaged 5.1 yards a carry last night. So the running game is still there. I think they just need to, key on that until they figure out some of these pass protection problems. And I know, with some young guys in there, the Jets were blitzing from all over the place. And, you got those free rushers. And that comes from communication, I think. That part should get better. And I actually like the two rookies. I know Caden Wallace, his first NFL game, he had a rough night. But, he played right tackle in college. He was playing his first NFL game at left tackle. It's, as we know, it's a little bit different. But, I thought he did okay. As bad as it looked, I mean, for your first NFL game, facing those type of odds, I don't hold him at fault for that.
Very good point when it comes to Caden Wallace. I think a lot of us have to remember that, myself included, because you look at the production on the field and you look at the low grades that come out from PFF after this game and how these offensive linemen were graded and how they were evaluated. Yeah, it's a lot to put on the shoulders of two rookies. And let's face it, the two rookie linemen that the Patriots have a tremendous amount of promise, but not a whole lot of experience in Layden Robinson when it comes to the guard position and Caden Wallace when it comes to tackles. So these guys are going to have to build into their ability. They're essentially going to have to find their niche as an NFL lineman, whether it be on the edge or whether it be in the middle. So at this point, I agree with you. I think there are levels of patience and maybe even levels of temperance that need to be applied to their performance on Thursday night. But the one thing that kept coming out to me when it came to the running game, this wasn't the best game for Ramondre Stevenson. I do believe that he is still their top offensive player and continues to be. I am in no way putting this loss on his shoulders whatsoever. I think these guys are still running well, including Antonio Gibson. But when you turn in 6 carries and 23 yards, that's a departure from what the Patriots did in the first couple of weeks. And it's magnified when you have all of the problems you have along the offensive line and the pass protection is not allowing you to gain that type of traction through the passing game. It almost begs the question of whether or not this team can win unless that running game is at least as close to flawless as you could possibly get, which it was in the first 2 weeks. So puts a lot of pressure back on Ramondre Stevenson. You've seen him have some difficulties with hanging on to the ball. He mentioned that after the game. He needs to do a much better job of protecting. I believe he will. It's just something that he does have the ability to do, and I think he'll spend a lot of time working on that this week with a couple of extra days practice heading into week 4 against the San Francisco 49ers. But it does put a lot of pressure on these runners to be as effective as they can. You also come back to pressure, like you said before. And in the previous segment, we talked about how Jacoby was blitzed on 40% of his dropbacks. Well, that number is compounded when you take a look at how often he was pressured. He was pressured on 56.5% of his total dropbacks. When you include the blitz, his dropbacks against the blitz, 80% of the time, Jacoby Brissett was feeling some sort of pressure. I don't care what quarterback you are not going to succeed if those numbers continue to be the norm. That is really difficult to put on anyone's shoulders.
Yeah, and at times there was more than one jet. Sometimes there was multiple jets providing pressure. But one of the interesting things, and I'm glad you brought up Ramondre, it was something I forgot to mention. He's already had a boatload of work in the first 2 weeks. And I thought with a short week, I expected to see Kevin Harris activated for this game to take a little of the, workload off of him, especially, just a couple of days removed, from a game where he had 21 carries. And they didn't choose to do that for whatever reason. But, he did sit for a portion of the game last night, and then they were going with Antonio Gibson. I think that's something they need to work into his schedule. I know now they have 10 days off before, they face the 49ers. But, having Kevin Harris activated here and there to take some of the workload off of Ramondre, I mean, you're going to need him all season long. You can't burn him out in the first half of the year. So that's something else I think they can look at doing. But like I said, I think Ramondre and Gibson are fine. I don't, if there's any part of the offense that I'm not worried about, it's those two guys. I think the tight ends are fine. I'm sure Claire's ears perked up with that, but I thought Hooper was open last night.
He was.
They were taking a shot down the field, and he was there, and Jacoby couldn't get him the ball. And again, I'm not gonna throw stones at Jacoby with the pressure he's been under. But there was a play there. They just need to start executing a lot better.
Yeah, without question. I'm glad you mentioned Hooper. Yeah, there were a few times where Austin was open, and for a lot of reasons, Jacoby, was not able to get him the ball. And this is a kid that has sure hands. I mean, he's got city hands, Mr. Hooper. Been counting money his whole life. But no, all kidding aside, Steve. Austin, I think, has been good. Hunter obviously could have gone for a lot more, but the Patriots had difficulty getting the ball out. And again, it comes back to pressure. And I'm glad you mentioned Kevin Harris. I think this is an underrated take that you're having here that I do see smattered somewhere within Patriots Nation, but not a whole lot of. You cannot expect Ramondre Stevenson to continue the pace he's continued on and not have some sort of either physical breakdown or have difficulty. And it does lead to mistakes because you are pressing and you have such a heavy workload on your shoulders that you're not able to perform up to capacity. So I do look for Kevin Harris to get some looks. It's time for the Patriots to take a look at that and give him an elevation. Jermichael Hasty did not get a whole lot of carries last night as well. He subbed into the backfield on the 2-minute drill on occasion, but this is a kid that can handle the load as well. So Patriots are going to need to balance that running game if they want to be able to sustain a serviceable offense here in the next couple of weeks. And of course, we always end on a high note when it comes to these things. We were glad to see Pop Douglas get a few targets last night and be able to showcase what he can do. As you eloquently said, my friend, we just need to see a lot more of it. Bottom line, folks, it was not pretty on offense for the New England Patriots in any way, shape, or form. But you can always fall back on the defense keeping you in games, right? Well, not last night. The New England Patriots also broke down defensively, allowing 400 yards of total offense to the New York Jets. Boy, were they missing Juwan Bentley in the middle of that defense. Steve and I are going to break down why the defense had difficulty against Aaron Rodgers and that high-powered New York offense. We wrap up this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast in just a moment. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listen up, Locked On listeners. Football is back, and there's never been a better time to use PrizePicks. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike those other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And here's something I know you're going to love. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. That's right. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live with PrizePicks. And my favorite thing about PrizePicks is they put their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So don't delay, do it today. Download the PrizePicks app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL, that's LOCKEDON NFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots as we continue to break down all the ups and downs. And there were more downs than ups, let's face it. All the ins and outs of the Patriots' 24-3 loss to the New York Jets on Thursday. If you are making Locked On Patriots your first listen, we thank you for that. And we also encourage you to make your second listen, our good friends over at Locked On NFL. All the NFL's top stories broken down by the amazing team of analysts we have here on the Locked On NFL channel on the Locked On Podcast Network. Much like Locked On Patriots, Locked On NFL is available each and every day, free on all platforms. So download, subscribe to, and follow Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcasts. And they are also a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Steve, we continue to break down our team here in New England. The New England Patriots did not look good. Yeah, there's no other way to put it. They just did not look good on Thursday night in any aspect. Usually the defense is what sustains this team, but they struggled to contain this New York Jets offense. A lot of credit to Aaron Rodgers, who looked a lot more mobile. He was able to handle those AA gap blitzes that we talked about last week, and he was able to find the holes in the Patriots defense. But, Steve, in my humble opinion, I think so much of the Patriots defensive struggles on Thursday night stemmed from not having Juwan Bentley in the middle part of that defense. You saw the tackling improve as the game went on. The secondary had their injury woes and some of their struggles, but they looked to get it together at times. But you really missed the guy with the green dot calling all the shots. In your opinion, how big of a loss was Juwan Bentley's absence for the New England Patriots on Thursday?
Oh, I think it was an enormous loss. We saw they targeted the middle a lot. Now, I'm not casting stones at Raekwon McMillan, who I personally like. Yeah, I like him as a player. I think he's a really good player. It was a compilation of a bunch of different things. The tackling was bad. They had 14 missed tackles, which for a Patriots defense is unheard of. You did mention they got a little better in the second half. But there were so many times they had, Rodgers or running back, stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage, and then they weren't able to wrap up. And, then you're seeing a potential loss turn into a big game. And one of the things I mentioned in my keys, prior to the game was that, you have to take away the layups for Rodgers, those quick slants and those easy, short crossers. And he ate them alive with that last night. Those were all wide open. And I think Bentley being there would have been a little bit better than they were. But one of the things that I thought, the defense came out looking very lethargic, I thought, last night. We saw them flying around the field in week one, and they didn't have that energy last night. And another big key, you mentioned Rodgers, who was fantastic. but the pass rush lane integrity was terrible last night. I mean, he escaped 5 times because they allowed him to break contain. He was 5 for 5 for 62 yards and a touchdown on those 5. Plus, he ran, I think it was 6 times for 18 more yards. I mean, that was easily fixable if you maintain your rush lane integrity. And they weren't doing that last night. They kept getting pinched in when they were rushing, and that was a killer for them. Just an absolute killer.
Without question. And I'm glad that you mentioned Raekwon McMillan because he was making his first start in over 2 years. So you take a look at him kind of getting thrust and the feet kind of being pushed to the fire very quickly. Raekwon definitely did that. Now, he had a team-high 10 tackles. I think we should point that out. And like you said, I'm a fan of Raekwon. I know you are as well. I love his style, and I think he's a solid defender. But you missed Juwan Bentley's starting the game so fast, so eager, so quickly, and really getting out to big starts. The New England Patriots never got the opportunity to control the tempo of the game last night. They were out of sorts really right from the beginning. You mentioned McMillan. McMillan whiffs on a tackle, and it goes for an 11-yard gain that moves the chains. It set them back on their heels so early. If Bentley's in the game, that probably doesn't happen. And maybe the Patriots can set and get their opportunities to be able to settle into their defensive schemes and put the Jets on their heels a little bit. That's something that we talked about last week. Try to confuse Rodgers, try to put him under pressure, try to put him on defense, and then be able to work your magic. Patriots simply just never had that opportunity. And maybe it was a little bit of malaise or maybe a little fatigue from playing on a Thursday night and coming off a short rest. Maybe it was a situation where they were simply just missing their captain in the middle of the field, but there was definitely something different about the way this defense looked on Thursday night, and it manifested itself in the game and the stat sheet, and the Patriots struggled as a result. Another area where they struggled, Steve, stopping the run. This team had been very good through the first 2 games in holding their opponents to 4.4 yards per carry and then 2.4 yards per carry. Breece Hall, 16 carries, 54 yards, a touchdown. He also caught 29. He also had 29 receiving yards out of the backfield. Braylon Allen, 68 scrimmage yards. So the running backs were able to get into a little bit of a rhythm, and that allowed Rodgers to be able to find his targets. Pat struggled in the running game as well, and I hate to keep coming back to it, but I think you have to lay the blame on that about not having Juwan Bentley in there. He's such a key to this team's run defense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, Bentley is such a downhill run thumper. I don't know. I was just watching all the missed tackles, and I was amazed last night because I was thinking to myself, this is very unpatriot-like defense. I mean, one of the things they've traditionally been is a short tackling team, and, they came out week 1. I thought the tackling was way ahead of the power curve, coming into the season. And week 2 was more of the same. And, to see them miss so many tackles last night, I was wondering what's going on. But they just seemed to be a step slower and a step behind last night. And it was across the board. I mean, like we both mentioned, I'm not going to put it all on Raekwon because he didn't miss 14 tackles.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they were missing them all over the place. One was a touchdown, in the secondary, but there was just so many of them. And I do think they missed their captain out there. He's always making sure guys are in the right position. Another one was Josh Uche. He had Allen dead to rights behind the line of scrimmage. And when I saw him, it was a solid hit. And I was thinking, okay, Allen's going to go down now. And instead, he gained about 5 or 6 yards. And, he turned a 3-yard loss into a 5-yard gain. So,
yeah, absolutely. And again, you mentioned Uche, and I think that's something that, seeing him finish plays is something that we need to see a lot more of. He definitely gets there, and he's got the ability and the savvy to get there, but finish the play. Make sure that the play is complete before you're able to move on, and we didn't see enough of that. And again, And number 99 not being able to get home the way he had in the first couple of games, especially on a night where the edge was lost more than it was won up front. You really needed to see Keion White come through, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to do so. And again, I'm not going to lay that blame on him. He faced a very good Jets offensive line that had a good, solid protection scheme for Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers kept getting the ball out quickly. It makes it very difficult for a pass rusher to get after the quarterback when the quarterback is shedding the ball. But at the same time, your defense as a whole, as a unit, needs to do a solid job about getting you the time. And I'm looking at that front line right now, and they need to be better than they were on Thursday against the San Francisco 49ers next Sunday. Devon Godshaw, Daniel Ekuale, Anthony Jennings, all of these guys need to contribute. And I think you will get a better performance from the defense in Santa Clara on Sunday. Whether or not that offense can right the ship in 10 days is the big question right now in Patriots Nation. And folks, we're going to continue to break that down from every angle right here on Locked On Patriots. In the meantime, I want to give a major tip of the cap and a thanks to my good friend Steve Balestrieri for joining me here today to help break down the Patriots' 24-3 loss to the New York Jets in East Rutherford at MetLifeStadium. Steve, before I let you go, please let everyone know where they can interact with you, where they can reach out to you, and of course, what you got marinating in La Cucina Balestrieri from now until the next time we welcome you here on Locked On Patriots, buddy.
Well, the chicken cacciatore didn't work last night, so we're back to square one on that. You can follow me on Twitter at SteveB7FSG. I write for PatsFans.com, which you mentioned, and I appreciate the plug there. Usually the day after a game, like right now, I'd be posting up my report card for the week, but I'm going to hold that off. I'm going to be working on that tonight, but I'll be posting that with my Sunday column since they're not playing on Sunday. So we'll be there, doing that and looking at a way where they can shock the world and upset San Francisco on the road.
Absolutely, folks. And you know what? If the Patriots have it in them, my good friend is going to be able to find a reason for it, because after all, he is our resident voice of reason. And that's why we continue to welcome him here on Locked On Patriots, and we're always honored to do so. Steve, thanks for stopping by. We look forward to talking ball with you again next week. And of course, folks, we thank each and every one of you for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Until next time, folks, on behalf of my good friend Steve Balestrieri, I'm Mike Debate, reminding all of you to stay safe, to stay well, to be the change you wish to see in the world, and to stay locked in to Locked On Patriots. We'll see you back here again next time on the Locked On Patriots podcast.